Sister Maggie was there, along with her brood, daughters Mallory, who had brought her steady beau, Taylor, a pregnant Megan, and lastly, the man who had now deserted the party, her son, Jimmy. Jimmy settled down on the floor, sipping at his beer while flipping open the file. A photo of his father in his dress blues stared back at him, as it always did. His face was lit with a smile, his bristly handlebar mustache highlighting his handsome face. Jimmy saw himself in the man's features, the shape of his mouth and the slight hook of his nose. Where they differed was in the eyes. Joseph's were open, inviting. Jimmy had stared in the mirror often enough to know his eyes were darker, shaded with regret. He carried that look with him often, which some found enticing, while others only saw distance. "Happy Thanksgiving, Dad," Jimmy said to the open space. There was no answer. There never was. Joseph McSwain was as silent as ever. Jimmy flipped another page, where he came upon his own notes about a recent twist in the case that had left him cold. A killer had been released from prison, only to kill again. After he was gunned down by the NYPD, an unknown sister had surfaced with new facts, then one day retracted them and disappeared into a black hole provided by the authorities. Jimmy was told by the police it had all been fabrication, that the Hassan case shared no link to the long-ago shooting death of their brother, Joseph McSwain. Skeptical of the story, but with no place to turn, Jimmy had filed his own report, and then pushed the forever haunt into the recesses of the dark closet, not to mention those regions of his mind that awoke only at night. Only after a visit from Captain Francis X. Frisano last month had a new fear sprung up inside Jimmy, one that suggested he'd been manipulated by results of the Hassan case. A fresh clue existed somewhere. It had to. Jimmy would find it. A phrase that stuck out during the last case. Blue Death. "I'll find the truth, Dad." A gentle knock stirred him. He looked up to find his mother standing in the doorframe of his apartment. Maggie was 67, and still beautiful, with knowing eyes and a mop of gray hair. Her knees sometimes grew creaky, which might have come from a lifetime of climbing 5 flights of stairs to her home, or up the grand staircases of the Callaway Theater. Here, it was only 2. Still, she rarely visited his office, knowing this was his sanctuary. Another superhero image flashed in his mind. Superman, hiding inside the cold walls of the Fortress of Solitude. But Jimmy possessed no superpowers, and even if he did, the knowing presence of Maggie McSwain was his kryptonite. Whatever resolve of hiding up here dissipated with her arrival. "Hey, Ma."
"Jimmy, it's Thanksgiving, a day of rest, of family."
"I know. I was doing great, until I wasn't."
"Do you always sit on the floor, or has the weight of the world on your shoulders pushed you down that far?"
He tried to smile. "I'll be down in a minute."
"The Martinos just arrived," she said, "including Rocky. They brought a pecan pie. I know you prefer that over pumpkin."
Rocky Martino was the father of Megan's baby, due this coming February. They were not a couple, since Rocky had only been pretending to date her, one drunken night a notable exception, hiding his true sexuality from very traditional parents, both now considered extended family and thus partaking of the holiday dessert. All of their families went back years, growing up in Hell's Kitchen. Gentrification had pushed out some of the old-timers, that or death had, but these 3 clans, the Burns, McSwains, Martinos, still considered 10th Avenue their home, their turf, along with a host of other families who never referred to the neighborhood as Clinton, and who refused to sell out to the high-rise, low-life developers. "I'll be down soon."
You could have